Ronnie Richter of the Bland Richter Law Firm has been saying from pretty much day one. And Ronnie, you've said that you are still very surprised at what Riley is hearing from his sources, that Alec Murdaugh will in fact take the stand in his own defense. You said that if you were representing him, that is not something you would suggest that your client do.
Yeah, no way. No way. I don't know what the source is. I'm not doubting the reporting. But from my point of view, has the state proven that Alex is a murderer? No. Have they proven that he's involved? I think so. Okay, so, but the burden is to prove that he's the one that pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Paul, and he's separately the one that pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Maggie. He could only talk his way into jail at this point. It would be crazy to put him on the stand. I stand firmly by that. There's no way he would testify if I were in charge of the case.
So right now you're saying that the state, in fact, is in the lead in terms of being successful in presenting their evidence to the jury.
I do think that they have convinced the jury. The lies about his whereabouts, about not being at the kennels, and then the digital timeline afterwards was very compelling. So yes, I think Alex is involved. Have they proven that he pulled the trigger? There's nothing in the evidence that would say that. But if the jury's convinced that he's involved, it might be good enough for them to convict.
Ronnie, let's talk about what happened on the witness stand today. Buster Murdaugh, the surviving son of Alec Murdaugh, took the stand. His testimony certainly highly anticipated. How did the defense use him?
Yeah, I think there's going to be two schools of thought on Buster, right? Some of the jurors are going to think, look, he said what he said because he has to defend his dad. He's lost his mom. He's lost his brother. Obviously, he's going to do what he has to do to defend his dad. The other school of thought is, if any part of him thought that his dad committed those crimes, there's no way that he'd be in that courthouse. There's no way that he would testify. Either way, that's good for the defense, because you want these little mini battles back in the courtroom, back in the jury room. You want the jury debating these issues, because a divided jury is not going to convict.
What about the state in terms of how they responded to Buster Murdaugh? Were you surprised by some of the questions you did not hear?
A little bit. You know, he's a delicate witness. Okay, he's a victim by any measure. All right, so you have to tread lightly. But there was a chance there to get your speaking points out again through this witness. You had to ask the questions. Did your dad tell you that he'd been at the kennels? Did he lie to you about his whereabouts at the kennel? Did he tell you about his financial crimes? Did he tell you about stealing money from Gloria Satterfield's boys that you know? Did he tell you about stealing money from his family members, his partners? So you can get all of those good talking points out. Did he tell you about the big lie at the roadside with Cousin Eddie? So it doesn't even matter what his answers are. The questions are more important than the answers. I thought it was a missed opportunity to get your talking points back out there again.
Let's talk about Buster Murdaugh's demeanor on the witness stand. Certainly a lot of people wanted to see him. He's a central figure in this play, if you will. So what about the way he responded? Did you hear a lot of emotion from him in terms of when the defense asked him questions?
You know, nothing. And it's a little bizarre. And you know, the jury's focused on that like lasers. But, you know, some people just can't deliver that moment. You know, you put a witness on the stand, you want them to give you that emotional moment. He might not just have it in his makeup. I think if I were asking the questions, I would have hit him with a couple of softball questions like, tell me what you miss most about your mom. Tell me what you liked doing most with Paul when you all were brothers growing up together. I would have tried something to pull some emotion out of this young man who seems to have no ability to emote whatsoever.
Let's also talk about the other compelling witness on this stand today. We heard from a forensic expert. He talked about the person who fired the shot, who used that blackout rifle, that 300. He said that the person who fired the shot, he did not believe was Alec Murdaugh because of the person's physical stature.
Yeah, so he traced the bullets, and the forensic mapping was very impressive, I thought. But the conclusion that the shooter had to be between 5'2" and 5'4", I think is preclusive of the idea that someone could have dropped to a knee and fired the same shots. I don't think it leads to that one conclusion. At this point, though, you worry that the jury is hearing and choosing what already supports their point of view.
He also said, though, that he determined that Alec Murdaugh could not have done it because he was so tall. Of course, we know that the state, in fact, was trying to shoot holes in his credibility.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of standard fare for expert witnesses. They're all tough witnesses, right? So lay witnesses can offer testimony about what they saw, what they heard, what they perceived. Experts can offer opinions because they have specialized training and education. So an expert witness is always dangerous because they're the ones connecting the dots. The only real attack is to try to attack the credibility of that person or the foundation for their opinions.
The other way the state tried to attack his credibility was connecting him to him being used with the defense on another case, that case being the case of Mallory Beach,
Sure.
the young woman who was killed in that boating accident involving Paul Murdaugh.
Yeah, and so ultimately the criticism for all of these experts is you'll do anything for a dollar. You know, if this side is paying you, you'll offer opinions favorable for them. If we're paying you, you'll offer opinions favorable for us. And that criticism is there. I thought he made a pretty good witness. I thought some of his forensic work was pretty impressive, especially the acoustic testing that he did at the house to explain the answer of how Alex could be in the house and yet still not hear the shots at the kennels.
All right. Ronnie Richter, again, you say that you do not believe that Alec Murdaugh is going to be on that stand on Thursday. That's what we are hearing from sources. That might be the day. We, of course, will continue to follow this closely and listen to what you suggest and watch what happens.
All right.
We appreciate it. And